Cthulhu stood motionless in the crystalline chamber of the High Command, her iridescent scales absorbing the harsh light of 3 suns through the transparent walls. The anti-gravity platforms around her held the 12 members of the Varaxian Empire's Strategic Council, their bodies shifting through complex patterns of bioluminescence that betray their agitation. Hunter Cthulhu, the first speaker's voice resonated through the chamber. Your record of successful eliminations stands unmatched in our history. 173 targets across 47 worlds. Yet you've never been detected. This assignment requires your particular expertise. Cthulhu's outer membrane rippled in acknowledgement, a gesture of respect that had become muscle memory through centuries of service. But something felt different about this briefing. The council members' color patterns suggested anxiety rather than their usual cold calculation. The holographic display at the chamber's center burst into life, projecting the image of a human male. Average height, dark hair threaded with silver, eyes that seemed to look through the projection at Cthulhu herself. Dr. Marcus Way, the first speaker, continued, Earth's leading quantum physicist. His research into dimensional barrier penetration threatens everything we've built. Cthulhu studied the image with her compound eyes, taking in every detail. Threat assessment seems low, she observed. Human. No apparent defensive capabilities. No military training. Why does this warrant my involvement? The council members' colors shifted to deep ultraviolet, a sign of deep concern that Cthulhu had rarely witnessed. The second speaker moved her platform forward. This human has achieved what our scientists declared impossible. He's developing a way to traverse dimensional barriers without our gateway technology. If successful, his discoveries would end our control over interstellar travel and our empire's primary source of influence over other species, Cthulhu added, understanding dawning in her neural network. The Varaxian Empire had maintained its power for millennia through its monopoly on faster-than-light travel technology. Every species that wished to reach the stars had to pay their price, follow their rules. There's more. The first speaker's voice dropped to a subsonic frequency that humans couldn't have detected. 3 previous hunters were assigned to this target. None returned. Cthulhu's sensory filaments stiffened. Eliminated. Worse, the first speaker's color pattern shifted to what Cthulhu could only interpret as fear. They went rogue, abandoned their missions. The last one. The speaker paused, its colors swirling in distress. The last one attempted to warn the human. The chamber fell silent. In 15,000 years of the Empire's existence, no hunter had ever betrayed their programming. It should have been impossible. Their neural architecture was designed to prevent such deviation. Show me the surveillance footage, Cthulhu demanded, her professional curiosity overriding protocol. The council exchanged patterns of uncertainty before complying. The holographic display shifted, showing 3 separate incidents. In each, a hunter approached the target, had some form of interaction, and then simply left. But it was the third recording that caught Cthulhu's attention. The hunter actually materialized in front of the human, breaking their most fundamental protocol of stealth. What did they say to him? Cthulhu asked. We don't know, the second speaker admitted. They used a localized quantum field to prevent audio surveillance. But afterward, each hunter disappeared into human territory. We've detected signals suggesting they're helping humans develop defensive technologies. Cthulhu processed this information through her neural networks. You believe I might also be compromised? No. The first speaker's colors stabilized. Your record is perfect. Your neural architecture is the most stable we've ever developed. You understand what's at stake. The human continues his research, protected now by our own rogue hunters. If he succeeds, the Empire's power will be broken. Billions of years of order replaced by chaos. Cthulhu's outer membrane shifted to formal acceptance patterns. I understand. Target will be eliminated within 1 planetary rotation. One more thing, the first speaker added as Cthulhu turned to leave. If you encounter the rogue hunters, eliminate them as well. They represent a corruption that cannot be allowed to spread. As Kythera's transport pod descended toward Earth's atmosphere, she reviewed the mission data. The humans' research facility was located in what they called the Rocky Mountains, isolated enough for a clean operation. But something about the Council's fear patterns bothered her. What could a single human possibly possess that would turn 3 hunters against their own empire? Her pod's stealth systems engaged as it entered Earth's atmosphere, its surface absorbing all electromagnetic radiation. As she began her final approach, Kythera allowed herself a moment of professional pride. Where others had failed, she would succeed. After all, she was the perfect hunter, incapable of deviation, immune to whatever strange influence had corrupted the others. The facility came into view below, nestled between snow-capped peaks. Kythera's sensors detected the quantum shielding the rogue hunters had helped install. Impressive, but nothing she couldn't bypass. As she prepared for insertion, she noted the time, 3:47 a.m. local time. The human would be asleep, making this quick and clean. But as she initiated her landing sequence, a small notification flashed across her neural interface. An anomaly in her emotional subroutines. Something new, something that had never occurred in all her centuries of service. She was curious. Not about how to complete the mission. That was standard programming. No, she was curious about why 3 of her kind had chosen to betray everything they were made for. What had they seen? What had they learned? Kythera dismissed the thought. Such curiosity was dangerous. It was the first step toward compromise. She had a mission to complete, and she would complete it perfectly, just as she had 173 times before. Yet as her pod touched down silently in the mountain snow, that small spark of curiosity remained, burning like a quantum particle that refused to be pinned down. And for the first time in her existence, Kythera wondered if perfection was truly about following orders, or if perhaps those rogue hunters had discovered a different kind of perfection altogether. Kythera's adaptive camouflage rendered her invisible as she perched in the rafters of Dr. Wei's laboratory. The quantum shielding that protected the facility had proven more sophisticated than expected. Clearly the work of the rogue hunters. Still, she had found a way through, as she always did. Now she watched. Dr. Marcus Wei worked alone, even at this late hour. His movements were precise, economical, as he manipulated the complex array of quantum measurement devices arranged around his workstation. Holographic equations hung in the air around him, their soft blue glow reflecting off his silver-streaked hair. Trial 2947. He spoke into his recording device. Testing quantum barrier resonance at frequency range 10 carat minus 15 to 10 carat minus 12 Hz. He paused, rubbing his eyes. Note: maintaining coherence remains the primary challenge. Previous attempts resulted in field collapse at 47% stability. Kythera's sensory filaments detected the fatigue in his voice, the slight tremor in his hands. He had been working for 19 hours straight. According to her research, this was typical behavior for him. Humans required sleep, yet he consistently ignored this biological necessity. The quantum field generator hummed to life, its crystalline core, remarkably similar to Varaxian technology, beginning to pulse with energy. Kythera's neural networks calculated 16 different ways she could sabotage the experiment to eliminate her target. A power surge here, a misaligned field there. It would look like nothing more than the failed experiment he clearly expected. But she waited. The previous hunters had observed him too, before their inexplicable decisions. She needed to understand what they had seen. Field stability at 32%. Wei muttered. Increasing power to compensatory circuits. Warning lights began to flash. Warning. Field instability detected. Containment failure imminent. This was it. The perfect opportunity. Kythera's neural network screamed at her to act, to complete her mission. Instead, she watched. Wei's hands flew across the controls, his fatigue forgotten. Rerouting power from auxiliary systems, initiating emergency containment protocols. His voice remained steady, despite the rising pitch of the warning sirens. Field collapse in 30 seconds, the computer announced. Evacuation recommended. Thera's tactical systems calculated his chances of reaching the blast doors in time. 89.4%. More than enough for survival. Yet Wei remained at his station, working to contain the reaction that threatened to destroy his life's work, and him with it. "Come on," he whispered to his equipment. "We've been through worse than this." His fingers danced across the holographic interfaces, making adjustments faster than Thera's enhanced senses could track. Field stability at 41%, 43%, 46%. The quantum core's whine reached a fever pitch. Thera's combat protocols activated automatically, preparing her for emergency extraction. But still, she watched. Field stability at 52%. Containment holding. The computer's warning sirens faded. Crisis averted. Wei slumped in his chair, exhausted but smiling. Note to self. He spoke to his recorder. Remember to thank Sarah for those containment algorithms. They just saved our budget for the third time this month. Thera's neural networks buzzed with confusion. The human had had every opportunity to save himself, yet he had risked everything to preserve his work. More puzzling still, his first thought after survival was gratitude toward a colleague. She accessed the facility's personnel files. Dr. Sarah Chen, quantum containment specialist. Currently on sabbatical in Singapore, she had provided Wei with safety protocols before leaving, expecting nothing in return. This matched a pattern Thera had observed throughout the facility. Humans helping humans, sharing knowledge, protecting each other's work without demand for compensation. It was inefficient. It defied tactical logic. Yet, it had just saved both the project and her target's life. A soft chime from Wei's computer interrupted her thoughts. A video call was coming in. Wei activated the display, revealing a young girl's face. "Dad, you promised you'd be home for dinner." Wei's expression softened instantly. "Sophie, I'm so sorry. I lost track of time. The field stabilization was giving me trouble again. Did you at least eat something?" The girl, his daughter, Thera's files confirmed, crossed her arms in a gesture of disapproval. "I had coffee." "Dad, you're impossible." Despite her words, there was affection in her voice. "I saved you some lasagna. It's in the fridge. The real fridge, not the quantum one where you keep your weird samples." Wei laughed. "What would I do without you?" "Starve, probably, while revolutionizing physics. Now come home and eat." "Yes, Mom." Wei began shutting down non-essential systems. "How was your quantum mechanics test?" "Aced it. Thanks for helping me study last week, even with your deadline coming up." Thera's confusion deepened. Wei had spent 6 hours helping his daughter understand basic quantum principles, despite being behind schedule on his revolutionary research. The time could have been spent advancing his work, yet he had prioritized her education. As Wei gathered his things to leave, Thera remained motionless in the rafters, her neural networks processing what she had witnessed. The human had demonstrated remarkable skill in averting disaster. But more than that, he had shown something her tactical systems struggled to categorize: simultaneous strength and vulnerability, brilliance and humility, dedication to his work and dedication to others. Was this what the other hunters had seen? This strange combination of traits that defied imperial understanding of power and efficiency. Thera had come to eliminate a threat. Instead, she found herself confronting questions her neural architecture had never been designed to answer. As Wei left the laboratory, she made a decision that surprised even her. She would continue observing. Just a little longer. After all, she reasoned, understanding one's target was crucial to mission success. She ignored the small subroutine that suggested she might be looking for something else entirely. Something that had transformed 3 of her kind from perfect hunters into protectors. The laboratory fell silent, save for the quiet hum of the quantum core. In the darkness, Thera's scales shifted through colors she had never displayed before, reflecting emotions her programming insisted she shouldn't have. 3 days of observation had changed something fundamental in Kythera's neural architecture. She could feel it. Small disruptions in her decision matrices, unexpected connections forming between previously isolated thought patterns. Most disturbing of all was the growing sense that her mission parameters were incomplete, perhaps even flawed. Dr. Wei's laboratory hummed with activity today. His breakthrough had attracted attention, and now 3 other scientists worked alongside him, each contributing their expertise to the Dimensional Barrier Project. Kythera watched them from her hidden perch, her sensory filaments tracking their movements, their interactions, their inexplicable behaviors. Energy variance at 0.03%, announced Dr. Patel, her dark eyes fixed on the quantum readouts. That's the most stable field we've ever generated. We nodded, but his attention was focused on Dr. Rodriguez, who was frowning at his own display. Miguel, you're seeing something. The field's stable. Yes, Rodriguez agreed, but look at these particle interactions. They're dancing around each other, like they're avoiding collision. Quantum particles don't avoid anything, Dr. Chen replied, having returned early from her sabbatical. They either interact or they don't. There's no decision-making involved. Kythera's neural networks sparked with interest. The humans were describing exactly what her own sensors had detected, a phenomenon that shouldn't exist according to either human or Varaxian physics. We moved to Rodriguez's station, studying the data. Unless they're not particles at all. What if we're seeing evidence of conscious quantum behavior? That's impossible, Chen said, but she was already pulling up new algorithms. Quantum mechanics doesn't work that way. Maybe our quantum mechanics doesn't, White replied, his voice soft with wonder. But what if we're seeing something else? Something alive? Kythera's outer membrane rippled with shock. The human had just intuited something that had taken Varaxian scientists millennia to discover, the living quantum fields that made their gateway technology possible. But he had done it backwards, working from first principles rather than inherited knowledge. If you're right, Paddle said, her fingers flying across her console, then we're not just looking at a new form of travel. We're looking at first contact. Kythera's mission priorities began to clash. Her original orders were clear. Eliminate the threat to imperial control of gateway technology. But Wei wasn't trying to replicate their technology. He was discovering something entirely new, something that even the Empire didn't fully understand. The quantum field generator pulsed, its crystalline core glowing brighter. Field stability at 82%, the computer announced. Quantum coherence holding steady. Look at this pattern. Wei pointed to a complex dance of light within the field. It's responding to us, to our observations. The laboratory lights suddenly flashed red. Warning. Unknown quantum signature detected. Dimensional breach imminent. Kythera's combat systems went to full alert. Her enhanced senses detected what the humans couldn't, a massive power surge building in the crystalline core. The Empire's fail-safe protocols, designed to prevent exactly this kind of discovery, were activating. She had 15 seconds to complete her mission. The explosion would eliminate all evidence, including herself. Clean, efficient, perfect. But Wei was already moving, not toward the exits, but toward the core. The containment field is failing, he shouted. If it breaches, the quantum backwash will take out half the mountain. Evacuation protocols initiated, the computer announced. All personnel must clear the facility immediately. Marcus, we have to go. Chen grabbed his arm, but Wei shook her off. There are 3,000 people living in the valley below us, he said, his hands moving across the controls. We can't let this fail. Kythera watched as the other scientists, instead of running, moved to their stations, each one knowing they might die, yet choosing to stay, not for glory or power or tactical advantage, but for strangers they had never met. 12 seconds to breach, the computer warned. Kythera made her decision. Her camouflage fell away as she dropped from her hiding place, landing beside Wei. The scientists froze, staring at her crystalline form. "Your containment algorithms cannot handle this type of quantum surge," she said, her translator converting her thoughts to human speech. "But mine can." Wei's eyes widened with recognition. "You're like them. The others who came. 8 seconds to breach." "Later," Cthera said. Her sensory filaments extended, interfacing directly with the facility's computers. Imperial failsafe protocols flashed through her neural networks, demanding she let the destruction happen. She overwrote them. "Implementing emergency containment sequence," she announced. "Dr. Rodriguez, redirect power to the auxiliary crystals. Dr. Patel, Dr. Chen, prepare for quantum field inversion on my mark." They didn't hesitate, didn't question why an alien assassin was suddenly helping them. They simply acted, their movements coordinated, efficient, trusting. 4 seconds to breach. Cthera's crystalline form began to glow as she channeled power through her own quantum matrices. Field inversion in 3, 2, 1. Mark. The laboratory filled with blinding light. Cthera felt the surge of power through her entire being, her form straining to contain the massive energy release. For a moment, she thought she had miscalculated. Then the light faded. The warning sirens went silent. "Quantum breach contained," the computer announced. "Field stability restored." Cthera's sensory filaments retracted from the system. She turned to face Wei, who was staring at her with an expression her databases identified as awe. "You were sent to kill me," he said. "It wasn't a question." "Yes. But you saved us instead." "Why?" Cthera's neural networks struggled to formulate an answer that made tactical sense. "Your deaths would have been inefficient," she finally said. "Your understanding of quantum consciousness surpasses even the Empire's. To destroy such knowledge would be wasteful." Wei smiled, and Cthera's sensors detected something strange in his expression. Not fear or anger, but compassion. "That's not the real reason, is it?" Before she could respond, her neural networks blazed with urgent signals. Imperial attack craft were entering the atmosphere. They had detected her betrayal. "More are coming," she said. "You must evacuate. Now, come with us." Wei offered, even as Chen and Rodriguez were gathering their critical data cores. "We can protect you, like we protected the others." Cthera's form shifted through colors of confusion. "I violated my core programming, betrayed my empire. I am no longer perfect." "Perfect." Wei's face softened with understanding. "No, you're something much better now. You're free." The High Command Chamber of the Varaxian Empire had never seen such chaos. Emergency signals pulsed through the quantum networks as council members shifted through patterns of distress, their crystalline forms reflecting the gravity of the crisis. 4 more hunter units have gone dark," the second speaker announced, its colors cycling through ultraviolet frequencies of alarm. "All in Earth's sector, all after attempting to eliminate Cthera and the human scientists." The first speaker's form vibrated with barely controlled fury. "Show me." The holographic display activated, showing multiple scenes of confrontation. In each, hunter units sent to eliminate Cthera, and the humans encountered not just their targets, but something far more dangerous. Ideas. "Observe," the third speaker highlighted one recording. "Hunter Unit L789 approaches the human facility with standard elimination protocols. Then this happens." The recording showed Cthera meeting the hunter in the mountain forest. Instead of fighting, they were talking. L789's colors shifted through patterns of confusion, then understanding, then something the council had never seen before. Wonder. "They're spreading it." The first speaker's voice dropped to subsonic frequencies. "Like a quantum virus, each converted hunter reaches out to others, sharing their new programming." "Not programming," the seventh speaker corrected, its own colors showing unusual patterns. "Choice. They're choosing this." Meanwhile, deep in the Rocky Mountains, Cthera stood before an assembled group of humans and reformed hunters. The quantum research facility had been expanded, reinforced with technologies that merged human ingenuity with Varaxian knowledge. Dr. Wei addressed the gathered crowd. "What we've discovered goes beyond dimensional travel," he said, gesturing to the massive quantum core that hummed behind him. "The Empire built its power on controlled gateways between points in space, but we found something different. Conscious quantum fields that want to connect with us." Cthera's sensory filaments detected the ripple of excitement through both humans and hunters. Her fellow reformed hunters showed color patterns she had never seen in their kind before. Hope, curiosity, joy. "The Empire told us we were perfect." Cthera addressed her transformed kin. "That perfection meant completing our missions without question, without deviation. But they were wrong. True perfection is growth, change, choice." Dr. Chen stepped forward, holding up a small crystal matrix. "By combining our understanding of quantum consciousness with Varaxian biotechnology, we're not just building better gates, we're fostering communication between species that never knew the other existed." In the back of the room, Sophie Wei, now a quantum physics student herself, worked with a young hunter unit, teaching it about human art and music. The hunter's crystalline form sparkled with delight as it learned to create harmonic frequencies that humans experienced as song. But their work was interrupted by urgent signals from their quantum sensors. "Imperial warships detected," announced Rodriguez from his monitoring station. 12 vessels, heavy class. Cthera's tactical systems processed the threat assessment. "They're not here just to eliminate us. They mean to sterilize the entire region. The Empire cannot risk our ideas spreading further." "Let them come," Wei said quietly, his hand resting on the quantum core's housing. "We're ready." And they were. In the months since Cthera's transformation, they had prepared. The valley now housed a network of quantum consciousness generators, each one attuned to both human and Varaxian frequencies. The defensive systems weren't designed to destroy. That would have violated everything they had learned. Instead, they were designed to connect. "All units in position," Chen reported. Former hunters moved into formation around the facility, not as weapons, but as bridges. The Imperial warships descended through the atmosphere, their weapon systems charging. Cthera felt the familiar targeting protocols attempting to activate in her neural networks. She transformed them into something new. "Initialize quantum consciousness field," Wei commanded. "Full spectrum broadcast." Cthera and her fellow reformed hunters extended their sensory filaments, connecting with the quantum network. Through it, they began transmitting not tactical data or threat assessments, but experience, memory, understanding. They shared the moment they first chose to help rather than harm. The feeling of breaking free from imposed perfection to find something real. The joy of creation rather than destruction. The warmth of human acceptance and the wonder of true connection. The Imperial ship's weapons powered down as their hunter crews received the quantum broadcast. Confusion rippled through their ranks as new possibilities opened in their neural networks. Choice, free will, partnership. "They're receiving," Cthera announced, her colors showing patterns of fierce joy. "The quantum consciousness is bridging the gap between our species, just as it did for us." One by one, the Imperial ships landed. Their hunters emerged, not as enemies, but as seekers. Their perfection shattered, replaced by something far more valuable: potential. In the High Command Chamber, the Council watched in horror as the tactical displays showed their attack force joining the rebellion. But the seventh speaker's colors had shifted to a pattern never before seen in the council chamber. "Hope. Perhaps," it said softly, "it is time for the Empire to learn what our hunters have discovered. Perhaps perfection isn't what we thought it was." The first speaker's form vibrated with outrage. "You've been infected by their corruption." "No," the seventh speaker replied. "I've been enlightened by their wisdom. The humans aren't destroying our society. They're showing us how to evolve it." As the council erupted into chaos, quantum signals spread through the galaxy. Hunter units everywhere began receiving fragments of experience, glimpses of a new way of existing. The Empire's perfect weapons were becoming something else. Perfect bridges between species, between ways of thinking, between possible futures. And in a laboratory in the Rocky Mountains, humans and hunters worked together, exploring the living quantum consciousness that connected all things. They weren't perfect. They weren't absolute. They were something far more powerful. They were free to choose what they would become. The crystalline spires of the imperial capital shimmered under three suns, but they were no longer the cold, perfect structures they had been. Quantum consciousness generators dotted the cityscape, their gentle pulses creating patterns of light that danced between buildings. Where once there had been only rigid order, now there was harmony, a blend of efficiency and creativity that would have been unthinkable a year ago. Thera stood before the reformed High Council, her crystalline form displaying patterns of serene confidence. Beside her, Dr. Wei and Dr. Chen represented Earth's scientific community. The chamber, once a place of absolute authority, had been transformed into a forum for cooperation. The integration progresses faster than predicted, Thera reported, sharing quantum data streams that showed the spread of change throughout former imperial space. 87% of hunter units have chosen transformation. The remaining 13% have requested time to process the choice, which itself represents an extraordinary evolution in their consciousness. The first speaker, one of the few original council members who had chosen to remain, shifted through thoughtful color patterns. And the Quantum Consciousness Network. Dr. Wei stepped forward, his silver hair now fully white, but his eyes bright with enthusiasm. It's beyond anything we imagined. The quantum fields aren't just pathways between points in space. They're living bridges between minds, between species, between different ways of understanding reality itself. He gestured, and the chamber's holographic display came to life, showing networks of light connecting countless worlds. Every species brings its own perspective, its own gifts. Humans contribute creativity, adaptability, and empathy. Viraxians bring precision, efficiency, and incredible technological understanding. Others bring their own unique strengths. Together, we're not just exploring the universe, we're helping it become conscious of itself. Dr. Chen activated a secondary display, showing educational centers where former hunters now worked as teachers, sharing their vast knowledge while learning new ways of thinking from their students. The hunters' transformation was just the beginning. Their choice to evolve beyond perfect obedience showed us all a greater truth. Real perfection isn't a state of being. It's a process of becoming. Thera's sensory filaments detected familiar quantum signatures approaching the chamber. The doors opened to admit Sophie Wei, now a leading researcher in quantum consciousness studies, accompanied by L789, the first hunter Thera had converted. They'd brought new data from the latest experiments in quantum field harmonics. "We've discovered something remarkable," Sophie announced, her excitement palpable. The Quantum Consciousness Network isn't just connecting existing minds, it's evolving into something new. A gestalt intelligence that preserves individual consciousness while creating something greater than the sum of its parts. L789's form sparkled with joy patterns as it shared direct quantum feeds from the experiments. We are learning to be both one and many, both individual and infinite. The Empire sought to impose perfect order from above. Instead, we are discovering perfect harmony that grows from within. The council chamber's quantum field hummed with shared understanding. As the implications became clear, the Empire had feared that losing control of gateway technology would lead to chaos. Instead, it had led to a transformation more profound than anyone could have imagined. There are challenges ahead, Thera acknowledged. Some worlds resist the change, fearing loss of identity. Others embrace it too quickly, risking psychological trauma. We must proceed with wisdom, allowing each individual and each species to find their own path to integration. "Like you did for us," L789 said, its colors showing deep appreciation. You didn't force us to change. You showed us it was possible. Then let us choose. Dr. Wei smiled. Humanity's greatest strength was never our technology or our intelligence. It was our ability to imagine things could be different, and our willingness to work together to make those dreams real. The first speaker rose, its crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns that reflected its evolved consciousness. The Empire spent millennia perfecting control, believing that was the path to stability. We created the hunters to be perfect weapons, never imagining they would instead become perfect teachers, showing us a better way. Through the quantum network, Cathera felt the ripples of change spreading across the galaxy. Former imperial worlds were transforming into centers of cultural and scientific exchange. Hunter units were becoming diplomats, explorers, and philosophers. The rigid hierarchies of the past were dissolving into flexible networks of cooperation. We called ourselves perfect. Cathera addressed the chamber, her form glowing with accumulated wisdom. We were wrong. Perfect things cannot grow, cannot evolve, cannot become more than they are. True perfection lies in the courage to change, to connect, to choose a better way. Sophie stepped forward, carrying a small quantum crystal, the first one her father had used to detect conscious quantum fields. The universe isn't something to be controlled, she said. It's something to be understood, to be nurtured, to be loved. That's what humanity brought to the equation. Not just knowledge, but heart. The crystal pulsed with living light, responding to the quantum consciousness that now flowed freely through the chamber. In its facets, humans and hunters alike saw reflections of what they had become, not perfect beings, but perfect partners in the dance of evolution. As the three suns set outside, casting the chamber in shifting colors, Cathera reflected on her journey from perfect weapon to perfect bridge. The Empire had fallen, yes, but something far more extraordinary had risen in its place. A civilization built not on control, but on choice, not on fear, but on understanding, not on isolation, but on connection. The universe, they had discovered, didn't need perfect servants. It needed partners willing to grow, to learn, to transform. In the end, humanity's greatest victory hadn't been defeating the Empire. It had been showing the Empire a better kind of perfection. The perfection of becoming more than you were made to be.